And welcome, everybody, to the Daily Space Weather Show. We've got a simmering down of G3 level geomagnetic storms, additional CMEs, a decrease in solar activity in general, and plenty more to cover here at the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. Let's get back to 24-hour videos from SDO. And you might see a filament lifting off there on the northeastern limb. That would be your screen upper left, right about there. Don't worry, we'll show you that CME in its full coronagraph glory. By the way, most of the activity has been taking place south of where we have the Earth scale located there. That's the most flare-producing sunspot region. There were 2 M-class flares and 1 C9 flare coming from that area. By the way, if you enjoy the content, if you haven't visited our homepage, check it out. Press the like button. Press the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Tell your friends and foes about us. Did you know that in 2018, a crack YouTube unit was sent to social media prison for a crime we did not commit? And that we promptly escaped a maximum security social media stockade to the internet underground, where we survive as producers of fortune? Did you know that if you have a problem, if no one else can help, and if you can find the content, maybe you can hire the Smash team? No, you seriously, right there's the link. Right on the homepage at smashomash.com. Our official subscription services site. So check it out if you haven't. I mean, my theories are full of crap. CRAPF. You can also find our paid affiliates. One of them is the Hemp Lucid link. One of them is the Amazon storefront. So check those out. Perhaps pick up some products there from our paid affiliates. Today's featured product from the merch shop. You can find that link at the homepage as well as below the video in the description. The Smasho merch shop's featured product is Do the Math. It might look like empty space there behind the Do the Math. 8 equals capital D, but it's not. You see, that's the constellation Cygnus, and one of the most intrinsically bright objects in the entire sky would be visible in that view. So do the math, or at least hire somebody who can. 8 equals capital D, that's the work. Please don't suck at it. And given the opportunity, if you want something done right, do it yourself, do the math, and save a bunch, up to 60% on some products at the merch shop. Everything site-wide, from 20 to 60% off. If you're looking to pick up some merch, now is a good time to do it. Again, links below the video and on the homepage at smashomash.com. So that's, again, the homepage. The Smash Team site is the official subscription services site of the channel. So if you want additional content, become a member of the Smash Team. We also send out email alerts about videos just like this one because people have been missing it in their subscription feed. Who could have guessed that channels they subscribe to aren't appearing in their feed? Wow, that's just so strange. What's happened to social media, folks? Oh my God. It must be a conspiracy theory. Shadow bans are completely fake, folks. Pardon the sarcasm. Here is yesterday plus today. That is it's November 3rd and November 4th and November 5th rather to date. That's what day it is. It's Sunday, November 5th. That's the 4th and the 5th. And, I mean, no major changes there. Mostly stable sunspot groups on the Earth-facing portion of the closest star. So that's what's going on. We'll see a further dip in the sunspot number in the next 24 hours because we've got a bunch of setting groups in the west and no new rising groups in the east. So if you're spooked of low solar activity, it's dropping back down again. It may be time to get in your bunker. There's the colorized magnetogram for the same period of time, November 4th and November 5th to date. Next, looking at volcanoes. And the list here on volcanodiscovery.com features one volcano, Popocatépetl. Popocatépetl in central Mexico producing a 20,000-foot ash plume, flight level 200. And that's all it has on the list. So that's all I'm reporting. We'll also cover earthquakes. So there are the past 90 days. And by the way, thanks for tuning into the Smash News Network, least busted name in news. This is from volcanodiscovery.com, and here's the USGS site. And the largest quake of the past 24 hours was the only 5 or greater magnitude earthquake occurring in the U.S. for once, but barely in the U.S., up there in the North Pacific at the barrier between the Bering Sea and the Pacific Ocean. In the Rat Islands of the Aleutian Chain, the largest quake of the past 24 was a 5.1. Oh, I stand corrected. There was also a 5.7 at Vanuatu. So only 2 5-plus magnitude quakes here. A 5.1 in the Aleutians and a 5.7 at Vanuatu. That was at 1529. The Aleutian quake was at 1327 Universal Time today. And how about some more solar imagery? Because that is the end of the earthquake and volcano rundown. Here is 171 angstroms from SDO. So yeah, a couple M-class flares and a large C-class flare came from that group in the southeast, just below our Earth scale there. And we have significant geomagnetic storms going on as we speak. A G2 level geomagnetic storm is currently striking Earth. The 10.7 centimeter radial flux is now at 155 solar flux units. There's the 1-year graph of the radial flux depicted by the black line. So 155. 155 solar flux units. Remember, folks, always include units on your response. If you just say 155, people are going to say 155 what? Pigeons? Ducats? Rupees? 155 butt plugs? What? 155 solar flux units? Yeah, that's better. Here's a space weather enthusiast dashboard, and check out the strong fields. They have gone into positive territory, though. So 24 nanotesla for the total field with a positive 12 BZ there. So not great conditions for continued strong geomagnetic storms, but keep in mind that could suddenly shift with basically no warning. So there's NOAA's forecast, expecting geomagnetic storm conditions to continue into tonight and to tomorrow morning, and even into November 8th. So you can see November 7th, they're still ending with geomagnetic unrest conditions, as a coronal hole high-speed stream is expected to be following these multiple coronal mass ejection impacts. So exciting stuff going on. Unfortunately, the geospace magnetosphere movies are down since Halloween. Also the ground magnetic perturbations maps. Also the geoelectric field maps are down. So we can still rely on the auroral forecast, though. So there's an idea of where to see the aurorae in graphical form for you. Yeah, so lots of data sets are down at the moment. So several applets at the Space Weather Prediction Center not currently functional. And again, keep in mind the likelihood of seeing the aurora has dipped a little bit with a positive swing to the BZ component of the solar wind, the vertical component of the magnetic field. So here you go. KP7 was as high as we got. Now we're back down to KP 6.33. And let's take a brief look at the Boulder magnetometer. Yes, the Boulder magnetometer located in Boulder, Colorado. Let's see what's going on there. And a little bit of an increase in the magnetic fields there in the past half an hour or so. So let's see what happens next. First, the real-time solar wind. So there's the ACE data, and it is way behind. Let's just skip forward to the Discover data. And there's the Discover. And it looks like the CME impact is kind of weakening a little bit here. I'm telling you, that looks like a coronal hole high-speed stream. All right, so anyway, yesterday, I believe I erroneously stated that this was a coronal hole high-speed stream. This looks like a CME impact, followed by another CME impact. So we are not expecting that that was a coronal hole high-speed stream. There's no explanation for that, but Solar wind density made it up over 50, nearly to 60 protons per cubic centimeter. And early this morning, we saw a major field shift, 34 nanotesla for the field with a BZ of negative 25. So that was a brief moment where we got into KP6, and then an extended period of negative BZ here. So now once again we see the magnetic field increasing, but the BZ has now shifted back into positive territory. So anyway, current conditions are about 12 protons per cubic centimeter for the solar wind density. And solar wind velocity here just under 500 kilometers a second. The BT-BZ is 24 nanotesla for the total field with a positive BZ of 12. So it looks like geomagnetic storm conditions are going to simmer down here, at least for a little while. Again, we are expecting a coronal hole high-speed stream to be following these two CME impacts, which were, by the way, both moving a little bit faster than I anticipated. So guessing the speed of a CME impact is far from easy. And so, yeah, so there you go, two CME impacts. Remember, folks, we've learned how to forecast CMEs before they eject from the solar corona, but what we haven't done is created new ways to try to guess the velocity of them, because that is already well established. So I'm not going to try to reinvent the wheel here on this channel. Let's look at the GOES magnetometers. And you see some wild variations there in the GOES magnetometers. No real surprise there, with major space weather showing up. At a KP7, a G3 geomagnetic storm has recently struck. But now it is subsiding here, so we're getting back into more normal modes. And let's take a look at the ecliptic plane field plot. You got to have the ecliptic plane field plot, folks. I mean, it's just one of the best pieces of data that you could possibly look at if you're interested in forecasting space weather and correlating different features together. And let's take a look at the last image here once this plays through. So there's the last image. Sector boundary crossing should be here in about 48 hours. So sometime around Tuesday's space weather video, we may be quite close to another sector boundary crossing. So that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Here is our line of sight field plot as we watch the solar polar field migration happen throughout solar cycle 25. The solar B field depicted in blue, photosphere magnetic fields depicted in grayscale. And let's move to our line of sight ecliptic plane field plot. Again, a North Pole current sheet should be here within 48 hours, assuming that nothing suddenly changes in the eastern limb. Here's our line of sight coronal hole plot. And like we said yesterday, we've got some North Pole oriented coronal holes rotating in here in the southeast. So these new coronal holes that are showing up down here, these are north. All of these are south. Sector boundary crossing is way over here like this. Actually, it's probably more like this. Again, about 2 days out from the sector boundary crossing. And let's take a look at a little closer view of that well-defined trans-equatorial coronal hole. So we can expect a significant space weather event from that one as well. You might see as high as a KP 6.5, KP 6.66 is about as high as I would expect that to cause a geomagnetic storm. But again, it does always depend on magnetic field strength and orientation. Continuing on to sunspots. And sunspot number here dropping back down to just over 100. There's the ROB, the Royal Observatory of Belgium. Sunspot number like 101, 102, something like that. And by the way, don't forget to press the like button. Press like, press share, press subscribe. Tell your friends and foes about the channel. It's only the world's most comprehensive daily space weather content. I mean, you'd think there's a market. There's certainly a market, folks. So if you're new, press subscribe. If you're anybody, press like. Leave us a comment. Tell us where you're from. If you're viewing the channel from a different plane of existence, timeline, multiverse, spacecraft, stellar system, solar system, etc., different planet, different asteroid, where are you from? Are you from the Andromeda Galaxy? Let us know in the comments. And thanks to our new YouTube subscribers. Congratulations on realizing that the channel exists. Pardon the lack of propaganda and alarmist nonsense. Let's move on to our flare probability monitor and scoreboard. So there you go. Most likely place to see a large flare remains from sunspot 3480. There is at least one new group that ought to get named, this one right here, but some spots are going to lose names, so we'll see sunspot number dip likely again once again tomorrow, down below 100 sunspots, which will have some people running for their bunkers for some reason, probably because they don't understand heliophysics or, I don't know, historic data. Why are people spooked of an active sun and an inactive sun? Anyway, I don't know. Let's take a look at sunspots. Here's the SDO 131 angstroms along with the SDO continuum. So that's pretty cool, right? Let's drop the 131. There's a continuum by itself. And again, these sunspot groups have been rather stable for the past 24 hours. Again, there is one new group to get named right here. It's a pretty basic looking sunspot. It is alpha class. Moving along to solar energetic particles and flares. No major SEPs, although the likelihood of an SEP is kind of high in the coming days. So even a small solar flare could lead to a solar energetic particle event. At the moment, the ghost proton flux remains at baseline levels. Like I said earlier, we have had a few solar flares. 2 of the M-class variety and 1 of a high C-class variety. That was the most recent. They were like M2s, M1.8s or so, and that one was a C9.3. So yeah, no major solar flares. Oh, before we move on to solar flares, there are the magnetic fields. And of course, again, not a lot of changes happening there. So here's 131 plus 94 angstroms. We'll show close-ups of the southeastern limb, where the three largest flares of the past 24 hours have happened. Again, 2 M-class and 1 major C-class flare. And if that's not a close enough view, here's a little closer view for you. That's not bad. So let's move on to a star chart and keep this thing moving. That's what's going on overhead Lehigh Valley, Pennsylvania right now. Skyandtelescope.org is where it came from. Saturn's up there high on the ecliptic, and Jupiter is a few degrees above the horizon over eastern Pennsylvania. Here's a solar system forecast. This is where things are today. And don't forget to leave a comment, all of you heavenly bodies out there. Here's where things will be in 1 week. That is the 12th of November as we get closer and closer to November's new moon. Looks like it's coming on the 13th. That is your 7-day solar system forecast. We will have a crescent waning moon as we approach the November new moon. Today's astronomy photo of the day is from 2013 over Norway. Yeah, Norway. A great place to view the aurora borealis. So about 10 years ago, somebody photographed those ghostly images of some purple, some blue, and some green aurora over the lovely Nordic nation, the land of fjords, Norway. They probably eat a lot more fish than you do. Yeah, they're very high in omega-3s. Next, coronal mass ejections. And we have had some. Let's take a look. Here are yesterday's CMEs. That is 100 frames from November 4th. And here are more frames from today. 63 more frames there for you. So at least 2 notable events. There's 1, there's 2. We'll also show C3. Let's get a little bit closer. We'll let those play through their entirety to let that sink in. So we have the C2 on the left a little bit ahead of the C3. So when you see an event over on the left, look over to the right if you want to see the zoom out. So there's one coming out of the southwest, and then one out of the southeast. I would not suspect during this preliminary look that those are Earth-directed. There's one out of the northeast. So 3 CMEs noted there on the LASCO. Please pause. We'll also look at stereo A, which is located right about there. And here we've got the same scenario. Stereo A coronagraph, raw imagery on the left, the difference imagery on the right, slightly delayed. We expect to see 3 CMEs this morning, first out of the southwest. There goes that one. And then one out of the southeast. And then one out of the northeast. That one is a more minor CME, and none of those are earthly directed. So here come custom coronagraphs. A little bit of missing data there, making it a little bit choppy. Here's a slight zoom in. And here we'll drop the C3 and add 304 angstroms to the SDO imagery. That's SDO 304 plus 193 and the LASCO C2. And again, 3 CMEs happening there. The last one out of the northeast, the first one out of the southwest, and the middle one out of the southeast. We do not anticipate any of those to have earthly directed components. And before we get to filaments, there's the full disk view and those spectacular wavelengths from SDO. Gotta love that, the 304 plus 193 angstroms by itself. Showing great depth, the coronal hole, active regions, the extended corona, and filaments. Filaments, filaments, filaments. Here are filaments from Big Bear's ground-based hydrogen alpha telescope. And some major motions happening there as that one ejects. Part of it looks like it shifted down toward the southwest also. Maybe that was just an optical illusion. Anyway, thanks to our new Twitter followers. If you want to name filaments after living humans, do it over on Twitter. Just follow the hashtag #NameThatFilament. Just type in hashtag #NameThatFilament. Put an arrow to the filament that you want named after a living person, and we'll do it. Succeed with the Name That Filament Challenge, America's new favorite pastime. Name that filament. It's a hashtag. You know how to follow hashtags? All right, I hope so. Anyway, here are filaments and prominences. A prominence is simply a filament that's hanging off the edge of the solar disk. And we've got quite a few here. Quite a few prominences. Pretty much all around. And let's get to bonus features, but first, the past couple of hours from the GOES 16 SUVI. You got to have the last couple of hours from the GOES 16 SUVI. I mean, it's just awesome. It's got the extended wide angle. Gotta love that. So it's great at showing coronal mass ejections as they propagate. At the moment, things are pretty chill. Here come bonus features, starting with satellite charging hazards. We have some over places like Western India and Saudi Arabia, the Northern Indian Ocean. Some surface charging hazards there. Electrons are building up on the outside of spacecraft. Some minor communications errors could be caused by this. There's the electron flux, which is kind of low, a bit cratered over the past about 20 hours. Geomagnetic storm conditions have commenced for sure. Wait till you see the ionosphere. It's pretty perturbed. There's the 1-year graph. Electron flux here kind of high. Expect the next update to be quite low there. That's the 1-year relativistic electrons measured at the F layer. There's the forecast model. And it looks like NOAA was expecting a dip. Our regular viewers were expecting a dip as well. And here comes the layer where it's measured. So the GOES 16 and the GOES 18, they're tens of thousands of miles above this at about 23,000 miles of altitude. They're measuring the F layer of the ionosphere's electron content way down here using radiography. Yeah, their radio signal. That's how they're doing it. And here is the vibrational frequency of the ionosphere. So again, the GOES electron flux is measured at the F layer. The GOES 16 and the GOES 18, they measure it using radiography. And we also have ground-based systems that measure the ionosphere. This data is from the Australian Government Bureau of Meteorology. And SMASH staff has just reminded me to tell each of you to shut up that mutt. If that stupid mutt is yapping during this video, shut up that mutt. Here's the anomalygram, by the way. That's anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median, and lots of red showing up there. As the ionosphere is excited, like many people who are going out to take videos of the aurora tonight, because it's a good night for likely viewing the aurora. So if there's any chance of you seeing it, make sure you break out your camera, folks, because most of the aurora is in ultraviolet light, which means it's not even visible to the naked eye, so definitely take photos and video. Here's the current image, 2300 universal time ionogram, and look at how low frequency the ionosphere is at that level, which means it's puffed up. And there's a lot of red on that anomalygram. That's anomaly in megahertz from a 30-day median. And some big-time ionosphere anomalies going on during this geomagnetic storm. Exciting stuff. Next, the whole atmosphere model nowcast. Total electron content on the left, maximum usable frequency on the right. Majorly high electron contents there. Really big electron contents showing up over the Eastern Pacific. Check it out right there. Also lots of the North American continent there. So some major GPS errors would have been likely throughout the day today. Once again, that is the Global Ionosphere Nowcast, the whole atmosphere model. A great summary of what's been going on. We'll also show total electron content. Free electrons to about 12,500 miles of altitude. Here you go. And once again, this looks jacked up. Not a fan. It looks erroneous. So here's the anomaly from the 10-day average over North America. And this looks more consistent with the rest of the data. So this looks trustworthy. See those really high electron contents there over North America, the Caribbean, the Gulf of Mexico, Mexico, and the Eastern Pacific. That's about what you'd expect to see the anomaly from the 10-day average. And let's close out space weather and show you some brief stuff about meteorology. So here is the SDO continuum. We show the refresh so you know you're seeing the freshest imagery. Here's the most likely place to see large flares. It is a beta gamma delta class sunspot group. Our favorite kind, the most likely to produce large flares. Here's the full disk rockback. And again, unless we see more sunspots form somewhere, We'll see another dip in the sunspot number tomorrow, as we've got some significant sunspot groups setting in the west and not any new ones to replace them rising in the east. So let's move on to meteorology. We're starting things out with that, my friends and foes, is sea surface temperature and ocean currents. So not to be confused with sea surface temperature anomaly, sea surface temperature. And we're showing the glorious Gulf Stream, which continues sending warm water all the way from the Gulf of Mexico up to Ireland and Iceland, preventing Europe from freezing. So there it is. It's still looking just fine. If you're banking on a year without a summer next year, you're going bankrupt. So there's the Arctic Ocean, which is filling with ice. If you're frightened of that melting, look how the ice has been building since September. Here's the Southern Ocean and sea surface temperatures, also ocean currents. There's the Atlantic. What about the Indian Ocean? Okay, we'll cover that as well. There you go. Indian Ocean sea surface temperatures and currents, and last but not least, one of the world's most, if not the world's most significant feature, the Pacific Ocean. That's a lot of water. And check out the temperatures. Nearly 90 degrees there. 87.5 degrees around the equatorial Pacific. That is pretty El Nino-ish. Okay, so here are the basic weather patterns of the entire world. Those are the jet streams of the east. Shout out to our viewers from this side of the planet. Those are the surface winds. Surface winds of the central world. Shout out to our viewers from this side of the planet. And these are your jet streams. Not that you own them. They're the ones that are controlling the weather, making it go from west to east for the most part. Last but not least, like sands through the hourglass of time, these are the jet streams of your lives. Shout out to our viewers in the Western world, and here are your surface winds. Next, some satellite imagery. We're back to the shortwave radiation map, folks, because it's getting too dark. So as we push towards spring, it's going to be a while till we start using visible satellite again. These videos are now premiering at 7 p.m. So there's the clouds and fog view for the Americas. And let's focus on the central U.S. So that's a shortwave radiation map. That'll help to show you where the aurora might be visible. Some parts of Montana might have some prime viewing there. Also North Dakota expecting a clearing to come soon. And next, our Doppler radar map. So interesting thing about windy.com's Doppler radar map is, check it out, it actually shows the range of the radar. So you've ever looked at a Doppler radar map and said, look, there's rain just disappearing. It's because it's at the edge of the radar's range. This one shows you the range. For example, there you go, there's Bermuda's radar. And this rain up here, it's not vanishing. It's exiting the range of the radar. It's not because NASA's spookily hiding data or some other nonsense like this. It's, yeah, you get the idea. Anyway, here's our weather.gov map. It's showing counties and waterways. If your location is lit, be lit and click that location at weather.gov, the homepage of the National Weather Service. And how about some forecasts, shall we? Here's the temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius for the next 72 hours. And look at the hot weather coming to the eastern U.S. Expecting 13 degrees Celsius above normal for this time of year. Maybe up to as high as 18 degrees Celsius above normal in places like Missouri. GFS 72-hour temperature anomaly forecast in degrees Celsius is what we're showing. Next, our jet stream forecast. We've got a single jet stream over most of the U.S. here, with a small secondary jet here dissipating over the southeastern U.S. There'll be an intensification there. Some windy conditions likely overhead at upstate New York. Next, pressure and precipitation for the next 72 hours. It's the same model, the GFS 72-hour model. And let's also show lightning. There's the lightning scenario for the past, let's see, it looks like it's about 8 hours, maybe 9 hours. About 9 hours there. And here is the current situation. There was some lightning off the coast of Oregon, so we zoomed in. Next time you hear thunder, scope it out, lightningmaps.org. It could save your you-know-what. It could save your pork roast from having a lightning bolt hole in it or something. So that's where the lightning strikes are. It's pretty low here at the moment. A little lull in activity, only 22 strikes per minute. It is a quiet time for lightning on a global scale. We'll close out with Doppler radar. There's a full 50-state view. We'll be fixated on the lower 48 view. There is clouds and fog. And there is your water vapor map. Again, you might have likely chance of seeing the aurora here at significantly low latitudes. So if you've got clear skies and low light pollution especially, go out there, take some videos, take some photographs and so on. Get your camera settings all squared away so that you can actually capture the aurora on your device. Remember, folks, most of the aurora is in ultraviolet. So take advantage of geomagnetic storms and take a look at space weather from the ground level, if possible. The aurora borealis, visible for possibly the coming 3 nights. And there's a little bit of a helper, but it'll show you where the clear skies are likely to be. The shortwave radiation map, and there is the water vapor. And of course, the best place to be viewing the skies would be below dry skies. Unfortunately, most of the northern U.S. is not quite as clear as the southeast. Anyway, it's time to close this thing out. Thanks for tuning in to the Daily Space Weather Show. Congratulations on realizing it exists. I've been your host, Dan, a.k.a. Smash-O-Mash, signing off. And may that solar wind be at your back.